So, hello, Pierre. So this is Pierre LeBlanc. He'll be up first this afternoon, and the other artist will be following him is David Downton. They're much more qualified to talk about themselves than I am, so we'll let them speak for themselves. And questions are welcome. Please type them in as we go, and I'll probably interrupt if needs be. Okay, go ahead, Pierre.
Yes, hello, good afternoon, I guess so, yes. So I'm going to start by presenting my film. Oh, I don't have host disabled attendee screen sharing. Oh, there we go, thank you. There we go. So I'm going to let you watch this trailer for my film. I'll probably start talking before it's quite done so that I ended up writing what I was going to say. So it might, be longer than I thought. So anyway, enjoy this. It's cuts from the long version, which you can see at the link that's available at the gallery.
Hey, Pierre, I think we've lost the audio on this.
I can't tell. I've got the sound at my end, so I really can't tell.
It's working now.
Oh, okay. The process is the product. The process is the product. The process is the product. So you're driving down the road and you're seeing both sides of the road at the same time. I don't recommend doing that while you're driving. Process is the product. The 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 process is the product. So I'm going to kind of start my story at this point. I think the audio cut out because I turned off my mic. As a kid, I used to go in the field next to our house on the farm at night, and I'd just stare up in the sky and I'd give my reports to the mothership. And I think in some childish way, I thought that somehow I was an observer or witness, and I was reporting my activities. And this became pretty important to me. It became part of who I became as a person. But at first I thought it meant that I needed to be a scientist, so I started studying biochemistry, and I was doing pretty good with that. My third year was rough, but I was doing relatively well. But I wrote this paper in a course, and I flunked it big time. And the prof came back to me with that this paper was in no way scientific. And I mean, obviously I was upset. Obviously I thought that I was being pushed aside. And I was mad for a very long time. But then I decided to switch to my other passion, which was photography, and go to the university and do photography. And so I went, and my goal was to be a National Geographic photographer. There we go, to be a National Geographic photographer. And I was surprised because when I got there and I was in an art history class and I saw this slide of a work by Marcel Duchamp, which was the famous urinal with a signature, it hit me. Art is about freedom. It's about this ability to completely control your environment in the goal of realizing a project. Of course, that doesn't mean controlling people. That means controlling your own destiny, your own ability to make work. And that's where I decided that art was going to be my expression. I continued studying. I eventually, I specialized in photography and printmaking, but mostly photography. Ended up at Concordia University doing an MFA. I went to Concordia specifically because it was, at that point, it was considered a very feminist bent place, and I felt I needed that for my work. So I went there, I worked with these wonderful people. My work developed greatly. I continued practicing as a photographer for another 10 years after that. And then in the late 2000s, like 2006, 2007, I started getting concerns about the environmental damage I was creating with my artistic practice. All the water you use for washing prints, the chemicals you need to dispose of, and it's all well and good to neutralize them, you're still putting a chemical soup in your sewer. So I started questioning working with traditional media, with, manual methods, and started exploring digital. At first, I wasn't convinced. I thought digital was a cheap copy of analog, but eventually they caught up. Resolution caught up to grain size, and the prints you can get now are just as good as what you can get with film. I was working with large format film, 4x5, so I mean, I really liked crisp, wonderful, sweet prints. And I needed to see that in digital to want to go forward. I got involved in this huge project. It was curated by Charlotte Jones here in Corner Brook and Sean McCrum in Ireland. And it combined three artists from Newfoundland and 3 artists from Ireland together on a project dealing with shorelines. This was pretty well the last major photographic work I did, and it was major. I was making prints 20 feet long, 6 feet tall. This was what I did with this work was huge, and it was all done digitally. But the 3 Irish artists that were there were sound artists, and I got to see them work, and I got to hang out with them while they worked, and get a sense of their process, because I thought sound art was about being a musician. But it's like totally not, which is why I'm doing it now, because I got permission by meeting these 3 people. But ever since I met these people and that I understood that I didn't need to have a musical background to be able to begin playing with sound and bending sound and creating with sound, I felt, again, a sense of freedom, a sense of liberation, because photography was getting tiring for me. Because I've got crates and crates and crates and crates of prints in storage that I need to pay for. There's that side, there's that physical side. There's also the side that I wasn't exactly satisfied at the kind of relationship you create with an audience when you hang something on a wall and you wait for the appropriate moment, like a reception, an opening or something like that, to engage with an audience, while with performance, with doing the sound stuff, the audience is right there. I'm asking them to engage with my work, and they're asking me to engage with them. And that dialogue is what's really moving me to do this work and to move forward with this work. I came to Twillingate. Well, I came to Twillingate a few years back for meetings with the Arts Council. Really like the area. What my big memory of that was, jumping from island to island to eventually get to Twillingate. And then after that, it's that drive around the bay. It just seems so central to what Twillingate is, which is why it appears in my work. But I remember that time really well. And when I saw this opportunity for a residency, I said it was perfect. I mean, been locked up for 3 months because of COVID. You look for an opportunity to get out. So I applied because of that, because I knew the region. I knew there was material here that I could play with, that I could manipulate, that I could re-represent in a way relating my experience here. And, it inspired me because of its geography, but also because of its people. It didn't take very long for me here to start meeting people, just walking on the streets, because I spent a lot of time doing that. So, and, going to local businesses and things like that, and getting to know the people and seeing that Twillingate has its groove. It's its own place. It's its own space. It has its own kind of language in a way. And of course, I started getting into that side of things too. Not that it necessarily gets reflected in the work, but it's reflected in my emotional investment. Changes as I become more invested in the situation. The techniques I use, I'm self-taught. I basically get tools as I need them or as I recognize that I may need them. It started with me buying just one recording machine. Now I have two. Then I started buying microphones so that I could, record sound in different ways and in different contexts, with more clarity. Then I needed to figure out how I was going to deal with these sounds. So obviously then came software and filters and things like that. So I could start playing with those sounds, bending them, shifting them. Then it was, okay, now how do I do this on stage? Well, then came, what do they call that? A board. And this board has 32 keys on it, and I can assign my recordings to each one of these keys. And I can play my recordings really not randomly, but intuitively as I go on with my performance. And the same machine also allows me to play an instrument or two or three, but I don't have enough fingers to play three. But it also provides me with a keyboard that allows me to play sounds. So I can mix electronic sounds with the natural sounds and create a very ethereal kind of mix, because my interests go towards meditation. I'm really intrigued by the music used to enliven, like whirling dervishes. Whirling dervishes are dancers that dance themselves into trances to gain their upper levels of knowledge. I think of Buddhist monks and Buddhist chant and the way they use very low vibrations of their voice to place themselves in a place of reflection closer to the great consciousness, would be following their language. And then there's the master musicians of Jujuka in Morocco that play these very, very strange flute type sounds, very, very fast. It's incredibly fast. But again, it's to take people and to bring them out of reality, to bring them into, I guess you can call it a psychedelic space. And that's why I keep referring to psychedelia when I'm working, because it is definitely one of the themes I'm looking toward. So I want the work to be psychedelic. I want the person to be transported to another place with the work. It is not about telling you what it's about. It's about you feeling it and telling me how you feel, letting me know how you feel. It's not about anything at all. It's about me being in Twillingate and making something. And what I made is this, and how you respond is the way you're going to respond. There's no right, there's no wrong, there's no good, there's no bad. And this is all coming from my main influence, Genesis P-Orridge. That was the whole basis behind, he started a group called the Psychic Temple. And the whole basis behind that is there's no good, there's no bad, there's just making and doing. And the process is the product. Making something is the thing, not the thing that's there at the end. So it's not good or bad, it's doing it. And that can't be good or bad either. So that's pretty well, oh, that sounded more like I was preaching than I thought. So I think I'm going to leave it at that and leave room for questions or whatever.
It's funny, as you were saying that you were preaching, I was just about to say hallelujah. You're speaking my language, sir. I didn't, for the people watching, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm a maker as well. I work in ceramics, make pottery and art and sculpture, and Pierre is modeling. Yeah, and it's process is sometimes the product itself. You kind of just is almost uninteresting to me once I'm finished. So. Yeah, so it's delightful that's a driving force as well, and I can also relate to what you were just saying with it's not about anything. people want explanations sometimes that were never intended. So I'm glad that you're not trying to make one up.
That's where the BS comes out.
Exactly. Now, something you were saying, sorry, I'll just start with a question. If anyone has any questions, you can type them in, and we'll get to them as we go. But I'm really curious. You have your MFA in photography, and then since then you've spontaneously, so you're doing a self-guided exploration of entirely new area of work. So I'm curious what that transition was like and how much your formal education has informed your current work.
Well, I mean, the thing is I'm in this fortunate situation where when I finished my MFA, I immediately started getting academic jobs. I didn't even have to look for them. I just fell into them one after the other until I finally got this job here that I ended up tenured a year earlier than normal because of the way they hired me. Like, I've just been so fortunate at that end that I just let my art do what it wants and I don't let it stress me out because I don't need to pay a bill. I don't need to struggle. And of course, it takes a long time for change to come because I can't work on it all the time. But I'm thinking, okay, I'm living as comfortable as I can possibly want. My work takes a little bit more time. Nah, what the hell? I probably live longer. So it's like, it has been a struggle. But the thing is I've never made a decision that I look back on. When I decided to drop the darkroom, I packed it up. It's still packed up. I haven't sold it yet because nobody wants to pay me the money I want to charge for it. But it's packed up. I haven't even thought of it. I did keep my 4x5 camera and my equipment for developing 4x5 negatives. I see myself doing that again. But everything else is pretty well gone. I never thought twice. And even with the digital, the move towards sound kind of dropped my interest in digital imaging. So I'm not as up to date my digital cameras as I could be because I'd rather spend my money on the sound stuff. But truth be said, ever since 1984, I happened to be a DJ at the university bar where I was doing my BFA, and it was the best job I ever had my whole life. I would do anything to have that job again. I discovered sound art for the first time. It was this great program, Brave New Waves on CBC, that was on overnight. I'd get out of the club at 3 o'clock in the morning and I'd listen to Brave New Waves until my class in the morning because it put no point going to bed. And the stuff I heard, and one night I heard a song by Throbbing Gristle called Persuasion, and hearing that sound, it's like something in my brain just snapped and everything changed after that. Everything. I started listening to sound art. I stopped listening to music. And, but I never thought I had, I thought I needed to have some musical talent to be able to do it. And that stayed with me until I worked with these 3 artists in Ireland. That's when I understood, no, I don't need it. Like Slavik Kui, who was one of the artists, he was hilarious. He was ridiculously hilarious. And he used to make his microphones. So they had these weird sounds and weird vibrations that they would pick up. And it was just so interesting.
Lovely.
And not about music.
Yeah, well, that's a fantastic message to be sending out. It's always something I find frustrating that people say, "Oh, I wish I had your talent," and I'm like, "Well, I wish I had the talent you think I have because I'm always fumbling in the dark." And
exactly.
So I'm glad you found your permission.
Yes, well, all the artists I love are horrible. I mean, that's just what I need.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And yeah, I'm glad that we had a chance to hang out a little bit and that you got to spend some more time in Twillingate. And that this Digital Artist Residency managed to get started even in the middle of the pandemic. So.
Oh, well, I might still retire there. Oh. That's not out of my plans.
Yeah, well, we'll have to keep. Sorry, there's a question just popped up. Can you see it there as well?
Can you kill the icon?
Nope. From Janice H. It says to David, but I'm assuming to Pierre, so I appreciate your views. Do you find that art exhibition callouts, museum, galleries, etc. are typically seeking clear written explanations about what your art is about, what political statements are made, and how it fits into the history of art or the current scene or trends? And how might this be a barrier to innovation? I know, it's a little bit.
I mean, that's a question that I feel like, oh my God, I'm afraid of insulting you. It's my problem. I mean, I happen to be teaching MFA students right now, and what I'm bringing to class is this insistence that we speak like social scientists to get funding. I don't deny that some artists, this is the domain they work in, but this is not the domain of art. I find that art is way more akin to philosophy, where it's based on the idea, on the concept you're surrounded. And yeah, I do find there's too much emphasis placed on what does this mean. I would rather the emphasis be on what is this, and let the artist describe it. In whatever way. But I think when you're trying to say, what does this mean? You're trying to label it, you're trying to name it. And it's like William Burroughs and Genesis P. Orr would say, when you name something, you take ownership over it. And that's not the point. The point is experience. It's what we want to give. And it's, but it's a fashion. It'll wear out. It'll be gone. It wasn't there when I started. It's there now, but it won't be there tomorrow. Oh, please, please, please let it stop.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that like I relate to the question as well. I'm entirely self-taught, and I don't have a solid background in jargon and art speak or art history. And I've never had any particular issue getting accepted to shows or getting grants. And now that I've been doing this a while, I jury some things as well. And we get applications that are very dense, and I need to reach for my thesaurus to understand what they're saying. And we get applications that are written in plain English and from the heart, and they have a similar rate of success in my experience. So yeah, I think it's a lot of personal approach, not necessarily as mandatory as people might think. Hopefully.
It's projecting confidence.
Mm.
I think that's what it comes down to. Like, damn them all, I'm right.
Exactly. Nice. That's a perfect place to stop. So thank you for your question, Dennis. And I think now we switch over to David, and we start with a clip from the film that he's done while he was here. I'm going to let Megan do the technical side.
Hi. What's up? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Get out of there, you.
Both of you.
Hi, Jason. What's up, my friend?
Oh, just downstairs chilling out.
Oh, yeah, I'm directly above you and to the left somewhat.
So, yeah, sorry, did you have anything prepared, or are we going to go jump straight into conversation? Because we can do both.
Oh, man, talk to me. Ask me stuff.
All right.
Hello, participants and viewers. I'm David.
All right, well, why don't you do a little bit more of an in-depth of your introduction. Did you go to school? Where did you go to school? What's your experience leading up to this residency?
Oh man. Well, I went to film school when I was 22. I went to MUN before that and hated it. I think I did every intro course that they have there, and it was just soul sucking to me. I'm just like, let me try some of this stuff. And it was just ridiculous in all the wrong ways to me. And I wanted to do something that was more fun, where you had more of a voice, just because my impulse is to always just make stuff and do stuff. And like, if I don't have a product at the end of the day, I can't really rest. Like, I can't chill and sleep, if that makes sense.
No, it does to me.
So I was sent out to Stephenville on the West Coast for the film school, and it was just like the perfect fit. I felt finally like a fish in a fishbowl, if that makes sense, instead of like a fish in a hamster cage.
Yep.
And yeah, just being like surrounded with other people who always want to do video stuff instead of just being the odd one out, who's like the one weird artist in a group of friends who just want to play video games and stuff. And, you know, I'm all for that, but you also have to do stuff. I don't understand people who don't like do stuff and make stuff, you know what I mean? So I really love the West Coast. The West Coast is very arts oriented, a lot more relaxed than the Avalon, I'll say. A lot easier to sort of meet interesting people, I find, or maybe it's just any arts college or any situation kind of like that. Yeah, it was awesome to suddenly be sucked out of academic stultifying sort of monotony of just like getting up and going to these classes and stuff and just like listening about like Aristotle. Man, I deeply do not care about Aristotle. Like, I thought I'd be like a really like sophisticated philosophy guy. I spent like many hours in those rooms, and I learned that I don't like philosophy. Like, I thought I did. Like, as a teenager, you think you do. Like, you think you're deep when you're like 16, and it's just like, nah. But yeah, just going from that to going to sort of like the jungle of young, creative, carefree, ridiculous, crazy people, and you just have access to all of these lights and cameras and sound gear, and there's tons of actors out there who are all really, really good and just like up for anything, and the whole town was quite supportive. And cold, though, colder than St. John's. Geez, St. John's was bad enough, but not as windy as here. Twillingate's a lot warmer. But Stephenville is just like, man, like the cold just comes right at you just from that ocean. Man. But yeah, I made a lot of very, very bad films out there and learned a lot. And I went out there, I thought I was going to be a writer because that's like what I really cared about. I used to, I wrote novels when I was in junior high. That's how fun I was. I was just writing fantasy novels and stuff. It was about a dog who fought aliens, and it was 600 pages. That's my start. But yeah, I thought the visual side of all of this filmmaking stuff was just kind of a means to an end. Like, you can't tell the story in video format like without a camera, and I thought it was just like pointless to try to make stuff look fancy, and visuals were just kind of like the bottom layer, and it didn't matter. And I actually wrote an essay. I went back and found it. This like super old USSR film, Man with a Movie Camera. My teacher will kill me. I don't remember the filmmaker who made it. Not Vertov, something like that, some sophisticated Russian filmmaker. And I wrote this essay about how like it's pointless to do cinematography and how like the story is all that matters. And over the course of being there, I like completely 180'd on that. And my brain just got completely shifted to like visuals is all that matter. Like, I would like be like reading comics or like watching stuff and just like turn the sound off and just like look at it. I saw one of my classmates watching Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind in Japanese with no subtitles, and I'm like, do you know what's going on? And he's like, yeah, I know what's going on. And I'm like, huh, that's brilliant.
Right.
It's pretty cool. But yeah, like the writing part of my brain is just like done, like it's just gone. It's really interesting how that happened. I used to think I was like a really, what's the word? I don't even know. The word when you talk good, like what George Bush was not. That word used to always come up. What was it?
Eloquence comes to mind. Eloquence.
Eloquence. Yeah, yeah. They always talk about, yeah, eloquence. I thought I was like eloquent for like a 15-year-old. And then like I was as eloquent as a 15-year-old when I was 20. So it was like not quite good enough anymore. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And yeah, my friend Amy would show me this Photoshop stuff. And I'm like, what's this Photoshop stuff? And she just had like the brush tool and would just like turn like the line into like a rainbow and making like a scatter brush or being able to like turn a word into a brush and just do all this crazy stuff with one click in this Photoshop program. And you just had like so much power and just like the mouse in your hand and moving stuff around to just either like manipulate a digital image or just from scratch to create something that's just like completely wild and complex and like colorful and stuff. And I'm just like, okay, I have to jump on this like digital imagery stuff. And I like eat, sleep, and breathe Photoshop and After Effects. And I just live in all this Adobe software and it's second nature. And invested a lot in camera stuff and lights as much as I could with, you know, my own means. And yeah, God, like the thought of sitting down and writing all the time instead of shooting all the time, I just like can't believe that I'm the same organism from like 6 years ago. Completely changed. I sink all of my money now into like collecting camera stuff and vintage cameras. I think I showed you some. I got some like some nice old Russian beauties and a lot of those Japanese ones from the 80s when autofocus was a new thing. And yeah, geez, I love doing all sorts of different stuff like that. It's great. And then magically, I'm sent to Twillingate. There was a call for submissions or a call for applications. What was it, Megan? Megan's there. But yeah, I basically just doodled on my application, and I'm just like, and I'm like, yeah, get me out there. It'll be great. And I somehow managed to win them over. I'm still not sure how that conversation happened. Like, oh, who's this David guy? He seems good. They're nuts, but they're also brilliant because I think it was a roaring success coming out here. It's very great. I've been to Twillingate before. I was like 11 or something. My mom will watch this later and be like, oh, David, you were 7. She doesn't sound like that. She sounds really nice. But I don't know, something like that. I had almost no memory of it. I knew what Twillingate to me in my mind was where my friend Jordan was from. I went to high school with this really cool, really tough dude, Jordan, who wouldn't take rides, wouldn't take the bus anywhere. He would just walk everywhere. And he would say, how's your beach legs? And I'm like, beach legs? And he meaning like, you know, like the ability to walk over this ridiculous terrain that you have out here with thorns everywhere, and the beach is so uneven. Everything is huge rocks and slippery with seaweed and green stuff and jellyfish everywhere. And I'm like, okay, that's what he meant by beach legs. And just like seeing this tough place that gave him those friggin' legs. And just yeah, it's a place that I think makes tough people like that. Because I don't know why. One time I tried to punch him right in the back, and it hurt me more than it hurt him. He just turned around and looked at me. I don't know why I hit him. We were just hanging out. Like my wrist. I'm like, Jordan, ow! And he just turned around and looked at me with this look. He was great guy, very strong. And yeah, I just said I'd come out and do a stop motion film out here because I love doing stuff like that. And did one last year. Me and one of my old classmates, Luke, talented guy, we did the 48-hour horror film challenge in St. John's.
Yeah, nice.
And yeah, it was tons of fun. It was just us two, and we were both like busy with other stuff, I think, kind of before and after it. So like we really didn't want to do anything that was organizationally or like administratively too involved. So it was going to be like just us two. It was just going to be like two guys. And I'm like, if we can't get actors, we'll just use dolls, because we can go to the thrift store and you can get a bag of Barbies at Value Village for like $1.25 or something. And I'm just like, how can you pass that up? Just the return on your investment. Yeah, exactly. It was great. And we just used whatever I had in my house at the time. It's just a black backdrop that I got at Walmart. This was $11, if you want to know. And a couple of Ken dolls and like a jar of salsa. And I'm like, we got this.
Right.
And just whatever we had was just thrown into it. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. I thought it would be hated, but it was well received at the festival, and like it like cleaned up the awards, you know, not to brag, but it was amazing. It was an amazing success for me. Awesome. And I'm like, okay. So I sent that to the Unscripted boss, and I'm like, get me up there. I want to do another film with Ken dolls, but in the ocean. Me thinking like, you know, it'd be easy. I made the last one in 2 days. And I was impaired on a lot of alcohol at the time. It's not smart. Don't recommend that. But yeah, geez. And I'm like, yeah, it'll be easy. I'll go out there and it'll be a vacation. I'll just, you know, basically space out, you know, 2 days of work over 2 months. It'll be great. But little did I know that not having my buddy with me and doing everything in the ocean would make everything like 40 times harder, because man, the ocean is a large, wet, powerful thing, and it will screw up everything you try to do. And man, some of these shots, like it's a 20-minute film. It was planned as a 6-minute film, and it just kept rolling. I kept finding stuff that I thought was cool and wanted to shove into it. Sure. But yeah, it was supposed to be 6 minutes. It's like 3 times plus that. And I think the amount of footage in it is like 112 gigabytes, and like 98% of it could not fit in this film, just because, oh my gosh, so much went wrong. And there'll always be like right outside of the edge of the frame, there's like me holding up the light with my foot, and then like I'm moving the tripod with one hand and like moving the boat with the other hand, and like keeping like the fan position with my ass, and it's just, oh my gosh.
So you were the full crew as well as directing? Yes,
I can't take 100% of the credit. I had a couple times Mr. Bo Broderick came out and helped me. We had a string attached to this boat. This is the ship. And yeah, he just pulled it along the ground to make it look like it was moving. And the great Megan Johnson came out once out to Back Harbor, and I just needed someone to pull the string on the boat while I moved the camera, because most of the time you see the boat move, I'm also holding the camera at the same time. Right. So I'm just like using my arms. My arms were 18 feet long. I could make it work, but sometimes you just need Megan Johnson to come out and pull on a piece of string. So yeah, thanks to Megan Johnson. Yeah, I didn't even know Back Harbor existed, because you go up Main Street, and I thought it's just, you know, you keep going and then there's Crowhead, and there's this little road to the sun that says Back Harbor, and I just kind of thought there was nothing there. And I was doing portraits with Lily, who's awesome. She's like, let's go over there. And I'm like, what is Back Harbor? And Back Harbor is like it's like a fantasy scene. That like really is. Little thing, not quite an island, but there's like a little like sandbar that like connects you to it. and like thorns and flowers and like beaches, and there's a bunch of like yachts up there, and I'm like, how did I not know this was here? And like the row of rainbow colored little fishing stores and stuff, very perfectly lined up. It's like a postcard factory out there. And there's this spot at low tide, or I guess it's high tide, or no, it would be low tide, where there's so much seaweed. It's this, it's like orange kelp. I don't know if it's a time of the year or if it's a different species. Most of my experience with kelp is on the south coast, where it's more like black or dark green. But yeah, it's very orange. And at low tide, there's like, it's like seaweed flats, like as far as you can see, almost. And I thought, oh, I really want to shoot out here, just because of what a unique sort of biome or like a unique environment it is. And I'm just like, I want to like get my boat and my characters in that. So I convinced Megan Johnson to drive me up there because my car is fucked up. And we went up there, and Megan's pulling the string and I'm like shooting the camera, and we got a lot of great footage. And sadly, that memory card has glitched out and it cannot be accessed. And I'm like, man, we went up there for like an afternoon, and it was like really good, and like everything looked really good. So I'm so sad that that footage is gone, because I kept trying to like get that footage off, and I was gonna shoot the like the ending Violet finale sort of ghost chase up in that area. And I ended up having to move it, and it worked out because I used tall grass instead, and it ended up probably better for a scene like that. But I loved the vista up there, especially from like low angle. Like I had the camera sitting like just 1 like millimeter above the ocean, and it's just like seaweed and then sky.
Nice.
And oh man, it looked great. Yeah, I really love Back Harbor. Back Harbor's awesome.
Just going to pull you back to the film for a sec. I'm curious how you put it together.
Yeah.
So when you got started, did you have any images in your head that you sort of, or did you just storyboard it out? Like, was it entirely organic?
It's 85% organic. It's very spontaneous, just because this is the Unscripted Festival. I wanted as much as possible to... At first, I wanted to not write it. I just wanted to go out and just do stuff. And it was just kind of like, you have to write something. So I wrote it, and we just kind of go out. And basically based on what I had, I would let sort of, as you say, organically kind of lead to where the story went. And it's just kind of tried to balance a coherent narrative with a lot of non sequitur, absurd stuff, and my weird humor comes out in it, I think, a lot, hopefully. And yeah, it was great, and I just try to have as much fun as possible with it, and get it done and make it happen. And I thought it was going to be like Jason and the Argonauts or like Odyssey type thing, and I'm just like, don't do research on like classical stuff because it'll like worm into your mind. I'm just like, just make it as spontaneous as possible. Sure. So there's a lot of accidents and just kind of things that happened, like the last shot where the boat flips over, that was not planned. It just happened. Like a second before it cuts out, you hear me like, oh crap, it falls over, because the final shot was supposed to be like the hero shot, right? It's like, right, the gang's all together and they're just going to hit the high seas and it's going to be great. And they just like stupidly fall over. And I'm like, you know what? That's perfect. That kind of suits these guys.
Nice.
But yeah. It's great.
Do you have images to share?
Oh yeah. Megan's just prompting me that perhaps you have some images to share.
Oh, I hardcore do. Just like screenshots and GIFs and stuff.
Fantastic. Let's see.
Where's my old screen share button here? Desktop.
I think it's green.
Green.
There we go.
Can you see?
I can see.
This was the radar screen. Did anyone notice that the east and west are wrong? That was on purpose. I wonder if anyone caught it. No one has mentioned it to me. Yeah, this is actually this is the closest thing to CG in the film because the little milk carton outlines, they fade out. And that's the closest thing to CG. There's an opacity effect on those milk cartons.
Very high tech.
Very high tech. Oh yeah, the captain's dress is actually made from the leg of one of the big porcelain dolls. I don't know how, but it got ripped off at some point, and I'm like, oh, that looks like a tube top. And I rolled with it spontaneously. Oh yeah, this is underwater. Can you see that?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's the horrible, evil ghost sea scourge hanging out with jellyfish.
It's a wonderful shot.
I had a lot of fun. They kept bumping into my leg, and it was super gross. That's over to not Dumpling Cove. It's one cove up next to the large graveyard. I never did find out what it was called because what Google Earth shows is different from what I think it's called locally. But yeah, I spent most of the summer up there.
Nice.
Some of the kids on the quads driving around must be like, who is that and why is he in the ocean with Barbies? You know what I mean? Over to French Beach, some dude yelled at me. He's like, oh, how much is it for a ride in your boat? I said, it's $3.
Well, it's cheaper than the rescue fee.
Yeah. I told him to hop in. He didn't get in. He wouldn't come. Oh, that's the wheel of dismemberment. The hard part about this was finding a tree up in those hills to stick it to. All the trees are blown away up there. But I did find one. This is just next to Whitehorns Hill or Whitehorns Road, something like that.
Okay.
But yeah, I always wanted to do sort of a game show scene. And here you can see there's very little chance of winning because there's only one thing on the wheel. And there's just a half-hearted little turn. I thought that was pretty funny. In the You Will Die game show. Oh,
Very
man.
epic.
This was hard. This actually almost killed the film because this is up the hill from where I'm staying. The big hill with the cross, which is behind us, just kind of down from that in the boggy spot. That's where I shot all that ghost stuff and the game show stuff. And I had to, oh my gosh, just like at like midnight going up there with a tripod and a camera bag and a big bag full of props and stuff and all of my gear and just trying to find a tree to tape my phone to light it. And it would, I would animate the sign and it would come back and it would not look quite right. Pardon me. And I'd go up to do it again and reach my pocket and my wireless remote was gone. And I'm like, oh, Jesus. Because if I don't have that, then I have to operate the camera with my one hand, which means that, you know, I can't go further than 2 feet away from my camera. I'll have to do a lot of stabilizing in post because when your hand is on the camera, you move it a little tiny bit, even if it's on a very stable tripod. So for technical reasons, you really, really want a wireless remote. Because otherwise you have to either accept that it's going to be shaky or use editing and post effects to stabilize the warp and stuff, or use a timer. You can like put like a 2-second delay in between when you push the button and when the shutter fires. So losing this remote was very, very, very bad. So I had to go out, oh my gosh, up in the road and up in the hills with like my phone light trying to find where this fell out of my pocket. And anyways, it was in the grass right next to the house. And I'm like, oh, well, at least I found it. Jeez, it was not easy to do. It was, yeah, I thought I was done when I lost that remote. I thought I'd have to like wait for a new one to come from online or just make an even more chaotic film. It was a big challenge. Oh, there's me, the doctor, and his potato buddy. And it's there's the creepy ghost in the background.
Yep, that has DVD cover potential.
Oh man, I want to make a DVD. I want to make a VHS actually. If you can
Awesome.
get like a template for those like cardboard boxes, that would be a lot of fun to do. But yeah, he's held onto his shoulder with a piece of a what's the word? Coat hanger.
Hmm.
I hate how visible it is, but I mean, you know,
Eh,
when the effect is done badly, it kind of like lets the audience into the filmmaking process. It's like you can do this too. Look how straightforward it is. A lot of silly quick fixes and stuff in it. His glasses are actually wired to his head because I'm pretty sure that that toy is from like it's a Zac Efron Barbie, or it's who's the kid in High School Musical, or like Backstreet Boys. It's one of these characters. He may not be the generic thing. So like I had to obscure his face, and I bought a toy. I had to buy an $8 hedgehog toy that came with these glasses, and I'm like, that looks like it should fit. And there was no way to glue them on because it wouldn't adhere, and it would be too hard to hide the tape. So I had to do this whole process. He had to kind of undergo surgery, sort of like up underneath his hair. I stabbed a little hole and pushed a straw through it so I could like get a fine wire to go through, and then pull the straw out the other side, and then just like wire it like through his ears. It was complicated, but yeah, they're on him forever now. They're very, very strongly attached, and the frames are just colored with Sharpie. Kind of looks like a mad scientist, which he like sort of is, I guess. But yeah, I like how he kind of looks cool when he's like very, very not cool. Super fun. And oh, there's the burning little pirate. This was up to Hospital Pond. And yeah, they really kind of just keep burning. It's weird. I guess they're made like that. There's the captain. I like that shot. Like, it's nice to do some lens flares with a little flashlight. That's my emergency light that I keep in my car. And taped it on. It kind of looked like a Canon. I wanted to do Canons initially, but it was too complicated. The doctor again. That I did a few versions of that shot, and this was the one that I used. There was one that I thought looked better, but he would like pass his face behind the boat, and like the way it was obscured was wrong. So this one was actually done 2 or 3 times.
Right.
Sadly, just because that was done in stop motion, where every frame is a photograph, and you just got to pose him in small increments over and over again. And there's down to French Beach, or not quite French Beach, the beach right before French Beach.
Right.
That I thought it was. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. This is where some dude yelled at me. A really nice guy yelled at me. But yeah, I love the selection of like coves and beaches that you have out here. It's like you could almost go to like a different beach every day and like never see the same one twice.
Yeah,
It's quite
probably good.
I tried to use a bunch of them. There's like at least like 6 beach locations that got used. It was super fun. Oh no, this one's kind of dark. But this is up to Hospital Pond, just meant to look like sort of coming in, sailing into a like a creepy marshy area. Oh, and here's the really fun stuff. This is sort of like the blood spray, except with leaves.
It's fantastic.
For anyone who doesn't know about stop motion stuff, basically you have a stabilized camera that is not going to move at all, hopefully, and you put your subject in front of it and try to focus the camera and turn off anything automatic, like autofocus or whatever, just because it'll constantly move and make weird changes
right.
to your picture. And just this was done by I used your hacksaw. I borrowed that from you. I came over and got that. Did you get that back after?
No clue. I'll look when I get home.
Okay, I put it on your step. I think Mike took it in. But yeah, I sawed an incision into his poor abdomen. I felt terrible doing that for some reason. And I took a ton of grass and daisies and sort of stuffed them into him. And you can sort of see where they're being scissored. Like about half of them are scissored off a little bit at a time. Some of them are
Okay.
pulled backwards. So once everything was in position, I would make a teeny tiny snip here or like pull on a blade of grass there and then
Right.
take a photo and take a photo and take a photo and take a photo and just making really, really small increments and pulling them out through his back and just sort of letting them fall. And all that grass is still all over the floor, actually. I need to sweep that up at some point. But yeah, I keep stepping in it. It's gross. But yeah, it's very, very time consuming. It's easy it's easy to bump the tripod or bump the light
Yeah.
or do something that just ruins it just in an instant. It's super hard. I started doing this sort of thing when I was pretty young, actually. My uncle Jeff got me my first digital camera, a Canon Cybershot or PowerShot, and it's a pretty basic thing, but for its time, it was great for what it was.
Mhm.
And I would do stuff like this with Lego Men. And one time, our cat Tanner came in and nudged the tripod, and just like suddenly, just like hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of work were just like completely wasted, just because like you do so much work for each frame requires work, and there's at least 24 or 30 frames in a second, unless you're doing something really fast, which is going to be like 60 frames in a second. So just like 1 second of stop motion animation has so much tedious, time consuming labor put into it that it's just like, oh my God, cat, I'm going to boot you. Yeah, he was a good cat. He broke my favorite lamp too. I had one of those lamps that it doesn't have a button. You just touch it anywhere and it lights up. He broke that too. Blessed cat. He was really cool. But yeah, it's very, very finicky stuff where a small change will go a long way.
Right.
But it's also just because you're hiding a lot of movement in a small fraction of a second. Like here it's 24 frames in a second, so it's easy. If you make like a very small mistake, it's easy to kind of hide it in the flow. So like it'll look kind of unnatural, but that's kind of like part of it. Here there's some wiggling of his body that was unintentional, but I kind of like it because it looks like he's kind of shaking as all the stuff is coming out of him.
Sure.
There's meant to be a sort of a disconnect, like the volume of grass that's coming out of him is like totally impossible and unreal and nightmarish, and just plays up how freaky it ought to be if that's happening to you, and be gross. And it's not the same without the sounds. I had a lot of fun doing the sound for this, actually. It's actually it's mostly the crinkling of a bag of cranberries. Listen to this.
Okay.
And like flipping paper books and post-it notes and stuff.
Hmm.
But what I wanted to do, I wanted to get one of those hair brushes with the little plastic tips. You know those?
Yep.
I don't own a hairbrush. And just make that sort of flick over a bottle, so you kind of get the flicky percussion with sort of like the reverb of like a plastic bottle.
Sure.
But I couldn't find any of that, so I used like paper and crinkling bags and stuff. I think it kind of worked. It kind of sounded pretty cool.
It did. It's a great shot.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I like this. I like portrait lighting like that, with just God, look at the muscles, eh? It's hard to find a more realistic body image for men in Ken dolls, but what can you do? This was super fun, and this took forever. I was just like sitting in a chair, just doing this over and over. Oh man.
We did get a question in the Q&A section from an anonymous person who was asking your feelings on Robot Chicken.
Robot Chicken. I think I saw their 300 parody in like 2008.
Okay.
And I don't think I've seen it since then. But I think they do a lot of stop motion and like claymation style. I'm not sure what kind of puppets they use. But yeah, they do really good work. I kind of wonder what their production flow is like. Like anyone who do like a full like half-hour segment of all stop motion is super duper impressive. And yeah, I wish I knew who the director was and how they managed that technically. Just because like I say, it's so easy to break it and ruin it, and it's very punishing for errors unless you're doing something like very, very, very abstract. Like here, I could kind of like bump them and move them in weird ways. And there's some irregularities with the lighting, which is actually, I didn't know there was, I think it's fluorescence in it, in my softbox, which is my light that actually, like over time, if you're doing long shutter speeds, there's actually like fluctuations that are invisible to the human eye that the camera will pick up.
Right,
where
like flickers.
Yeah, like a 1 second exposure will not always be the same, like based on what's going on in the light bulb at the time. I don't know. There's some scientific explanation that I don't understand. But yeah, that's on my screenshots and stuff.
It's fabulous.
Stop share. Where's my camera? Oh, am I still
Hello
back?
again. Well, why don't I put mine back on too?
Hi, I'm David.
Hey, I'm Jason.
What's up, dude? I really like your shirt.
Thanks. I figured I could only be seen from sort of the shoulders, so I thought I'd decorate.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if we do this again, let's swap shirts.
Right on. Okay, so there's no other questions in the Q&A. If there's anyone there that now's the chance.
Ask me anything. I'll lie. Or don't.
I think that was fantastic, sir. Thank you very much for sharing your process.
Thanks, dude. This was fun.
Right on.
Oh, look, it's Beach Bilge Plinko.
Lovely. Well, actually, that's a question I have just before we finish.
3 seconds.
What are you doing with your props? Like, are you emotionally attached to these things now? Are they gonna follow you forever, or are these disposable?
I'm definitely taking the boat. I think I'm gonna throw out everything else, or leave it here. There's so much stuff. They could make a little shrine of me if they want. I hope to come back here in 10 years and see a little shrine with like a movie poster and my seashell Plinko board and stuff.
We'll see. There you go. Now we've got our marching orders.
Or it'll go back into the thrift stores. It'll go back into circulation for the next filmmaker who tries something like this.
Wonderful. All right. Well, I hope you enjoy the rest of your time here.
I do. I'm going to do a bunch of photography and stuff. And big thanks to the cast because everyone is volunteer. Before I go.
Yeah, do it up.
Yeah, Mike and Nina and Ray Robin and Lily and myself and Leah and Lauren and Maggie Mullins and Trudy. Am I forgetting someone? Probably. Oh well. I love you. But yeah, thanks for having me on. And big thanks to Megan for setting this up because geez. All the stuff is hard to do. Our all-powerful concierge, who's always waiting in the wings, doing very hard work with us, and we're not
all
easy.
All hail the arts admin. We are not easy to administer.
Yeah, unscripted. All right, signing off. Oh my God, my hat on. All right, so long.
Ciao.